Welcome to the CURES Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlund. Do you ever notice you see the same numbers all the time and think, maybe, is that a message for me? How could we actually maybe use those numbers to align with our highest good? Well, since the beginning of time, actually, humans have been using numbers for divination, and often repeated numbers like 333, 444, 888 often are called angel numbers. I love it when I see those kinds of numbers. And internationally known numerologist Kari Samuels actually has an entire course on this, and she says they do carry special messages for us. So we're going to dive in. This is going to be such a fun show for all of us. I know on all of our shows here at Channel 3, Scott's always teasing me about how much I love numbers, but Kari, welcome, and we're excited to hear about your special numbers course.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here, and I love talking about this. So yeah, thanks for having me.
I get questions about that all the time. The other day I posted on social media that my odometer had said 777 is all the sevens, you know, and everyone's like, oh, I see that too. I look. And so you say, actually, these aren't random events. The universe is speaking to us through numbers?
Yeah. Well, there's something called synchronicity, which is how all divination works. And really, the universe is always speaking to us. Basically, your intuition is always speaking to you, and you can see clues around you about what's in your life and how to make choices. And this is based on the law of synchronicity. And Carl Jung talked a lot about synchronicity. He's the one that came up with the concept. And it's basically when you think there's a random occurrence that's actually a meaningful occurrence. And it's based on the fact that we're all connected. And Carl Jung came up with it because he kept having these synchronicities happen with his patients. Like they'll be talking about a dream. One famous example is a scarab beetle. This patient of his was talking about a dream she had of a scarab beetle, and then a scarab beetle flew into the room. And there was another patient that was dreaming about the number 23, actually. And there's things patients would be thinking about something, and a colleague would knock on the door with a drawing of it. It's basically how these seemingly random encounters are actually something that's connected to our psyche and our soul. And so we see numbers to help us on our path, because numbers are everywhere. And that's a way that our intuition and our higher guidance can communicate with us, and they get our attention, don't they?
They do. In fact, I often see repetitive numbers on license plates. I don't think I'm the only one, and I guess maybe because that's when we're quiet, we might be alone in the car. So we need to pay attention when we see a certain number sequence showing up all the time?
Well, a lot of it too is that's our higher guidance's way of getting our attention. Again, because numbers are everywhere. And the thing is, well, I don't know if everyone here believes in spirit guides and angels. However, I'm an intuitive, and I've done thousands and thousands of intuitive readings over almost 3 decades. And because I have experience with connecting with people's guides and angels, it's hard for me not to believe they're real, because I've seen so much evidence of it. And it's something that I've always been connected to, even as a child. So our guidance, and whether you believe in guides and angels or not, your intuition is always wanting to get your attention. And again, you're saying, oh yeah, maybe you're relaxed, and that's a way that it gets your attention. So when we dream, we're relaxed, and that gets our attention, right? And usually we're thinking of something in our daily life and we can't figure it out. And then we have a dream that helps us have an answer to something, or that gets our attention. So numbers are the same way. It's a way for our psyche, our soul, to get our attention, to pay attention. And the reason I teach this and want to share this information is that if you have a language for your intuition, then you can interpret these messages. And really there's only 0 through 9 to learn, and then it's just different number combinations. But each of these numbers have a meaning and energy to them based on numerology, which is an ancient science and an art. It's a sister science to astrology, which I adore, absolutely, of course. So numbers have meaning. And so if you understand the meaning of them, and again, it's very simple, 0 through 9. If you understand the numbers' meaning, then in addition to these numbers getting your attention, you can find answers to what's been pressing on you, questions that you have, just like a dream. So basically, when you see numbers in the wild, it's a synchronicity that's like a dream, a waking dream, that helps you get answers because numbers are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to see these symbols. Now, we get symbols all the time. There's sometimes animal messengers or different types of symbols that come to us, but numbers are the ones that are more prominent because they are everywhere, and it is an easy way to get our attention.
And I think a lot of people, wherever you are in the spectrum of what you think this is coming from, a lot of people will notice this and love to talk about it. So let's say, assuming that people who are listening to this episode are interested in this, and you've written a whole course, which actually you can get for free on your website, KariSamuels.com, K-A-R-I Samuels.com. But let's just talk about, since you were little, everyone always heard, oh, it says 1111, make a wish. So let's just start there. This goes back to ancient wisdom for thousands of years that numbers are a universal language. So let's say we're seeing 1111. What does that mean?
Well, numbers and letters they have a sacred geometry to them. It's not random what letter is assigned to a sound or vice versa. And so letters and numbers carry vibration, and their shape is important because it's a sacred geometry. Everything is very deliberate. And so if you look at 1111, the shape of it, so we have these two ones, and ones are like columns. They're like antenna that are direct conduits between spirit and matter. And so these antennae have a quickening. And if you notice words too that begin with the letter I, like intuition, innovation, inspiration, they begin with I, which also has that kind of sacred geometry, which is a conduit, which is why we put these like steeples, right? Like churches and mosques and a lot of religious institutions will have these kinds of antenna type of shapes on top, because you're channeling energy from above, from the divine, and bringing it down to matter. So the ones are a quickening between spirit and matter. And then you put the ones together, and that's like a column. So you're in this column of light. And the word light in numerology reduces to the number 11 as well. So 11 is like an illumination where you're receiving these divine downloads, those inspiration. When you're sitting there and all of a sudden this idea comes to you from out of the blue, that's a quickening. That's an inspiration from the divine. These are divine downloads. So that 11 is like a column. And so when you put the 1111 together, well, first of all, that does get your attention. And it is like these two pillars of the soul. And so when you see 1111, it's like you're stepping into the next phase of your soul's evolution. You're receiving more light. You're receiving more inspiration for what's next for you.
Okay.
And of course, when you see this 1111 and you are getting this download of light, this infusion of light, it brings up shadow as well. And so you have to let go of what's no longer useful for you, what's no longer purposeful, and bravely step into a new phase of your life. Because whenever we do get an inspiration, it can be scary to act on it. And so that 1111 is a reminder that you're being inspired, that the visions and inspiration and feelings that you're receiving are purposeful for you. And so take heart, believe in yourself, and walk through those pillars boldly, walk into the next phase of your evolution with courage. And so that's a really beautiful message when you receive those 1111 inspirations.
And people know that, right? All throughout movies, that's very popular culture. But let me get, like, you posted on social media recently, and I saw this all over Instagram of, oh, it's a 777 day. And people are like, what do you mean? It's not the seventh year or whatever. But we're in July. We had the seventh day. Apparently, it's a 7 universal year. So for just the average person out there, what does that mean?
Well, 7 in numerology is the number of soul and soul purpose and soul searching. So 7 sacred geometry is kind of like lightning. It's really piercing and it's really quick. So the 7 is all about really touching base with what's inside of you, what's true to your heart, and what your soul is meant to do. It's actually associated with science and research as well. Anytime you're really going for the truth. And so this year, 2023, is the 7 universal year. And we get that by adding 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3. And that adds up to the number 7. And so that's really the theme of the year. It's something that we're all going through. Just like we talked about Mercury retrograde, we all experience Mercury retrograde. We do it in a very personal way. However, there is really no doubt at this point that we're all being affected by it.
Right.
That we're all responding to Mercury retrograde universally.
We did another, I'll encourage people to go back and
What's
listen.
that?
We did another one with you on that. And I'll just encourage people to go back on the podcast. It's still there. But I love your interpretation of astrology, that it's not that it makes you do anything, but it's the weather. Yeah. And so you know the energies, so to speak. So when people are saying, oh, this is a 7 energy, the idea that this could be a good time to fill in the blank.
Well, when we have a 7 energy, and you can be having a 7 personal year, which is based on your birthday, the 7 universal year is a time when we're really connecting with the deeper parts of ourselves and asking, is this true for me? Is this what I really want? So there's usually some pivots when the 7 is present. And it requires more alone time for you to touch base with your soul, your feelings, your intuition. And so during a 7 year, I recommend everyone take some alone time to journal and to really connect with yourself. And I do believe there is a lot of questioning now about what you really want, who you really want to be with, and is this right for me? Is this the right path I want to take? Is this the right choice for me? So there's a lot of questioning during a 7 year. At least there should be. And if there isn't, you may want to take some time to do that.
I want to get through the numbers if we can, and not that it's rapid fire, because I want to hear your, I know we could go so deep on this, and if we had hours, we could still talk about it. And that's why I encourage people, if they're really interested, instead of just looking it up on the internet, you're saying a lot of that's written by artificial intelligence and bots. You have a whole course that's really, you know, you've studied this and what the ancients believed about numbers. So it's so interesting. But we did ones. Now let's say another number I see often, and I think other people see it sometimes, is 222. So a repeating number, and we see it at least in 3s. So if you're on a license plate and you start noticing 222, or your check at the gas station is 222 for your water and your snack, what does 222 mean?
Well, first of all, I want to say that when you see 3 of a number, 3 is the number of creation and co-creation. So when you see 3 of a number, that's reminding you that you have the power of co-creation. And so it's really like a sign, a marker saying, here, this is where you're headed. So when you see 3 of a number, you're headed in a certain direction. So when you see 3 2s, whereas 1 is actually the number of the self and new beginnings as well, 2 is the number of relationships, not surprisingly. So if you see 222, it could be a reminder for you that you need to be in partnership with people, that you need balance, you need harmony, that it's a time for peace and harmony and peaceful relationships for you. It could be a sign that loving relationships are coming your way, and it could be something to focus on. So let's say you're really working too hard and you see 222. It's a reminder for you to focus on relationships and focus on having more peace and harmony and balance in relationships, as opposed to focusing on other things that are taking you away from that.
Okay. So now let's talk about 3s.
Oh boy, I love the number 3 so much. 3 is actually associated with speaking from the heart, communicating, smiling, joy, having fun, and creation, the act of creation, the act of co-creation, the act of recreation. So it's really joyful. It can actually even mean procreation, because it's the number of and growth and abundance that way. So it's associated with being joyful, connecting with other people in a social way. And one very important thing to remember about the 3, it's a reminder to say what's in your heart.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when 3's around, you're not really expressing what's in. So it's reminding you to speak from your heart and create from your heart.
444, that's actually a number that those who've been watching Channel 3 know that our dearly departed Denise DeCenzo, we used to text each other 444, because to us, what we understood about that number was 444 means, you know, you have good guidance all around you. It was a very positive number. We'd often look at the clock when it was 444. So we'd lovingly text each other 444. And I think people know that one a lot too. But what's your interpretation in your courses about the number 4?
I just have to say, Denise, and did she have a last name that began with a D as well?
Yes, Denise DeCenzo, yes.
D is the 4th letter of the alphabet.
So
it's really beautiful. It's beautiful that you connected with the number 4, because that is really her number in a way, because the D's, the D, that's 44. So that is something representing her. 4 is about squaring corners and everything having to do with the earth and the material plane, finances, home, real estate, strengthening. So it has to do with building your foundations, your material foundations, focusing on building strength and squaring your finances and taking care of all your material needs. So 444 is really about earthly things and enjoying earth, but really about building stable foundations here on earth. And 4 is also associated with teaching and leaving a legacy. So it's really not a surprise that you and Denise had that number together, because she built a legacy, didn't she?
She absolutely did. And so I'm moving, because I'm thinking the listeners want to know all their, I know everyone must, there's personal numbers too and combinations, and I'll leave that to them to look on your website or get deeper into this, because you're doing a whole course on it. But let's go to the 5s. I've always heard when you see 555 a lot, that means things are changing.
That's right. 5 is the middle of all of the single digits. So 5 shakes things up. And so in numerology, the letters N, E, and W reduce to the number 5. And so that tells you a little bit about the energy, because really numbers and letters are connected that way. So it's about shaking things up, trying something new, having an adventure, that kind of thing.
And sixes. This one, everyone's, oh, 666, that's horrible,
I
that's the devil.
know.
But I know in the world of where you study mysticism, that's not the case, right?
That's right. And it's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, it's telling you not to focus on your fears. So it's a little bit like meta.
Okay, it's reverse.
It's about really choosing out of love rather than choosing out of fear. And it also can represent pregnancy as well, and family, love, harmony, beauty. It's actually the opposite of all the fears. So,
well, and I know your heritage is Jewish, and if you go to a Seder, the number 6 is very important. We've had rabbis on the show that explain the 6 things that need to be on a plate. So it is a number that's biblical.
It's the number of the heart. It's about beauty and restoring balance. So after all the 5 shake things up, 6 comes to restore balance. So it's about balance and love and harmony. So sometimes when you see 666, because it is the number of family and responsibility, it's a reminder to you that you're taking on too much responsibility.
Okay.
That you need more balance and you need to delegate and let go.
Okay. So we did the 7s, and we're in a 7 universal year. So it's still great when you know, people are pulling the slot machines, they see 777 in general, and we're seeing 777. All things are doing pretty well, right? But 888, that's a number I love to see because I've heard that means abundance.
Yes. Well, if you look at the 8, it's the infinity symbol sideways, right? So it's this sense of constant regeneration, that you'll never have lack in the universe, and to remind yourself that there's always a way to refill your cup, that you can have big losses, but you'll also have big gains, and to trust the process of the universe. And after the soul searching of the 7s, you know who you are, it's time to go big. It's time to really make your presence known and ask for more money, or allow yourself to receive more money, and really accept the bounty of the universe.
All right. And finally, we get to the 9s, and interesting, just on a personal level, because I love numbers, and people who watch Great Day Connecticut know that, because I'll say, oh, 999. We've had different numerologists on, but I used to see 999 all the time at different times, and I'm like, okay, something's happening, something's ending, it's a transition. That's what I would feel. So a 9, is that true? When we are seeing a lot of 9s, it's sort of an ending, getting way to a new beginning?
It's definitely an ending, because it's the last of the single digits. You're wrapping things up. And I always see the 9 very similar to the energy of autumn, where it's an ending, but it's also a bounty and a celebration. It's a culmination of all your hard work. And so you're celebrating all that you've done, and you're receiving the gifts and the bounty and the celebration for all your hard work. And because you're getting ready for a new cycle, it's time to let go of the people and circumstances that are not right for you. And sometimes there's a letting go that you have no control over. So maybe there's some grief involved. It's really an energy of culmination, but also celebration sometimes as well.
So we're in a 7 universal year, and so I guess collectively that means we're all experiencing some 7 energy. But I think what's interesting is when I've done this kind of story, in modern day times right now, we all tend to laugh about it, or it's just cocktail chatter. But if you had been an affluent man 400 years ago, allowed to go to college, you would have studied astrology and numerology. It would have been required for you as a degree. Like J.P. Morgan wrote that millionaires don't use astrologists or numerologists, billionaires do. Walt Disney never opened a park without consulting this. So this is, I guess, an ancient science, if you will, that we've sort of abandoned as a modern culture.
Yeah, and it makes me sad. That's my 9 energy. Feeling sad that we had to really let this go. But I was actually listening to an astrology podcast, because I'm never done learning, right? And they were saying that doctors they would look at a person's birth date and know all of the cycles. They would know by their age, like what Saturn was in at the time and what Neptune was in at the time. They just knew all the cycles from looking at so many charts because it was part of helping them diagnose. And it's really unfortunate because if you think about how we live our lives, we act as if we're all in the same weather every single day. But if we never paid attention to real weather, like the weather outside, the storms, or the sunny days, we would not know how to plan anything. So it boggles my mind that we do not use this tool, which helps us plan for the celestial weather, that we aren't using this that is given to us as a gift to help us understand what are the storms, what are the sunny days energetically. So it's really important to understand, yeah, we're in a 7-year. So if you're soul searching now, you're right on track. This is exactly what you should be doing, and take some time. It's not a time to push ahead, because after the soul searching comes the abundance, right? Because if you had that 8 energy before the 7, it would be so messed up, because you should know what's in your soul before you go big with it. Otherwise, wow, you'll really end up in a mess. So next year is more of a year to really go bigger with things. And this year we're questioning. So you may be changing course throughout the year. You thought you wanted one thing. And actually this month is a month to change course. Getting into astrology a little bit, Venus is going retrograde, and Venus is really about who and what we love and what's in our heart. And so that's all being reevaluated now for the next couple of months. And so that's really part of this 7 universal years, understanding who and what you love.
So we're ending our time now as we think about numbers.
Oh my gosh.
We live by them here. I know it goes so quickly. But if you're fascinated like numbers, like I am, and you want to know either as much as you can or just figure out why you keep seeing the similar numbers, I know you have a lot of resources on your website, KariSamuels.com, or at Kari Samuels on Instagram. You're always posting what is happening with our celestial weather, so to speak. So I'll drive people there. You've got a new course you're starting to teach on this if people want to learn a little bit more. So Kari, we appreciate you being here. I guess we're all in a 7-year, so let's hope everyone has some good experiences. And I love the idea that next year is all full of abundance. I think people love to hear of that. So Kari, we appreciate you being here. KariSamuels.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks, and happy birthday week to you.
Thank you. And you can follow me at Kara Sundlin for more information on the cutting edge of wellness. Have a great day.